Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Peace be upon you all and welcome to the channel. In this video we will discuss a new mechanic in the Novus Mundus tabletop role-playing system, which includes the wisdom points, cognizance, and knowledge. As usual, we will be comparing these mechanics to those of the famous Dungeons and Dragons system. I do not know why it is famous, to be quite honest, but regardless of that, it is famous nonetheless. Simply for clarity, because people are more familiar with that system than this one, obviously, because it is still new. So I will be using D&D for comparison and clarity. Wisdom points in this system refer to experience points from Dungeons and Dragons. Or you can call it experience without the points, it truly does not matter. Cognizance refers to proficiency level. If you attain proficiency in a skill, here it is known as cognizance. By the way, the creator of this system did not create it to mirror Dungeons and Dragons, but with different jargon. This was designed from zero, from the beginning foundation. He did not use Dungeons and Dragons as a fiduciary in any manner, but it turned out to mirror Dungeons and Dragons. That is why I am using the comparison. And lastly, knowledge. For goodness sake, I thought I changed the color. There we go. Knowledge is expertise in Dungeons and Dragons. Firstly, we will cover how wisdom points are attained, and then we will discuss proficiency and knowledge. If you recall, each skill within this system contains 9 strata. There will be exceptions to that rule, which we will discuss later on, bi'idhnillah and God willing. But for now, know that each skill, or the general overall rule, is that each skill has or bears 9 strata. I will use a skill from Dungeons and Dragons for clarity. Which one should I choose this time? Let us say survival. The skill survival, which I believe is under wisdom, if I recall correctly. Then I will draw the 9 strata, sorry, not stratum. Strata is the plural. We have 1. I should probably shorten this. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I feel this is the final countdown. Come on. 7, 8. Okay. I will copy one of these. Enable transparency. Paste it. There are the 9. If you recall, the strata represent the progress a character has for a particular skill. And as you probably have inferred, the strata are related to the experience points that a character attains. When the character gains experience points, they level up from one stratum to another. The model by which characters gain experience points is robust. However, I will share with you the core component of leveling up in this system, and if you wish to redesign it for your own purposes, feel free to do so. As I mentioned, the creator designed this system with that particular aspect in mind. reusability, flexibility, and modification. Or mutability, to maintain the ability suffix. So here we have the 9 strata, and we also discussed the 9 Remoras and how the strata are used to combat Remora and vice versa. Within each stratum, you will have, obviously this is designed for a computerized program for your character sheet, but the creator is currently indisposed with obligations, so he's unable to create a program that will automate the process for you. Until then, use a pencil and paper or pen and paper. Do not be lazy. Okay, so let us see how leveling up functions in this system. I will use the red color here. So what will I, let us see, I will need 5. Yeah, that will take too long. Okay. I will create these and then explain what they do. Okay, here is one box, a second box, a third box. Okay, I will pause the video, finish filling this row, then return to you shortly. Okay, I have returned. Pretend that the entire row is full of these squares. Then also pretend that the entire rectangle of the stratum is full of multiple rows of these boxes. Like so. I might as well do this as while the video is paused. I will be right back. Okay, I have returned yet again. We have 8 rows of these boxes and 5 columns. So a total of 40 of these boxes. These represent the progress at which you track for leveling up. These represent the wisdom points or the experience points. Normally, the total number of points for each stratum is 100. So there should be 100 of these boxes, but obviously because the size of the rectangle does not permit 100 boxes, pretend these are 100 boxes. How does a character acquire wisdom points or experience points in this system? When a character engages in an action that involves the survival skill, the character gains experience points. The model I am about to share is designed for lengthy campaigns to reflect the growth of a character and the character's development across or throughout the campaign. As I mentioned, you can modify it with modifiers, that is up to you. But the core principle is this. If a character fails an action in survival, for example, if a character wishes to start a fire using wood that was harvested on a deserted island, for example, if a character fails, this character gains 2 wisdom points out of 100. If a character succeeds, he gains only 1 wisdom point. I should probably use a different color. Yeah, let us use green. If a character fails in an action, they gain 2 wisdom points. If a character succeeds in the action, they gain only a single wisdom point. That means the core component of this system involves doubling the experience points for failure rather than success. If you would like to know the reason behind that, we can discuss it later, but that is beyond the scope of this video. There is a reason why the creator or designer chose this mechanic. You may feel that this will be rather exhaustive if a character has to fill 100 of these and they only gain 2 wisdom points per action. Sorry, I have to take this. I will be right back. Apologies for that, I have returned. So the rule would be doubling the experience points gained for a failed attempt, and half of that for a successful attempt. Once all the boxes have been filled, then a character is able to transition to the next stratum, and the cycle repeats until the character reaches the 5th stratum. Actually, I should use a specialized arrow for that. Once the character reaches the 5th stratum here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, yes, the character attains proficiency or cognizance. This is where the proficiency level for a skill is attained. Where's the brown arrow? Here. I will label this as cognizance or proficiency. Cognizance, proficiency. Before I discuss the level of cognizance, you should know that because the system is designed to be flexible, you can add modifiers at every level to expedite the process for gaining experience. For example, you can add a modifier times 2 here or times 1, then here times 2. So any experience gained or any wisdom points gained are multiplied by 2, by 3, and so on and so forth. That is up to you. You can also increase this or decrease this number depending on the necessity. For example, you can have a total of 2000 experience points and deduct from that number with every attempt using a particular skill accordingly. However, you should note that if you will resort to such a model, the core concept for that model would be the experience points decreases till the level of proficiency, and then they increase again till the level of expertise. That is if you are using this particular model. If not, if you wish to use this one, for example, then it will be 100 for all the boxes, and you can use multipliers, modifiers or multipliers accordingly. Again, it is up to you how you wish to design the system. The core component of that system is that the experience points are multiplied by 2 for the failed attempt, and it is multiplied by 1 for a successful attempt. That is the mechanic that you must adhere to, at least for this system. You do not necessarily need to adhere to it if you do not want to, or you can adjust it accordingly. Just remember that this system utilizes this particular approach. That is what I meant by you must adhere to it from earlier. What happens when a character attains proficiency or the level cognizance in a particular list? If you recall from the past video, Remoras have ranges, an upper bound and a lower bound. And I use bound because of the... Actually, never mind. Most of you will probably will not understand generic classes in programming. Well, it depends on the viewer, obviously, but I do not think programmers watch these videos. Upper bound, upper limit, upper threshold, however you wish to label it. I use bound because of my background. There is an upper bound and a lower bound for the Remora. I will write them here quickly for you, so I will pause the video and return shortly. Thank you for your patience. These are the different bounds for the Remora. For example, if your character is at stratum 1 for survival, by default, the Remora, or the difficulty class will be here, unless otherwise stated, obviously. But the character must roll, or the player must roll above the upper bound. So the character here, the expectation is, I will write the expectation here. The expectation is -8. So to determine if the character will succeed or fail in this action, the player will roll a d100, then add the expectation to that result, then compare the result to the upper bound. Let us say for this example 80. The result is 80. Then the character fails. If, however, the Remora was set to this level here, then the character will succeed, just as an example. And the wisdom points will be attained regardless of failure or success. The only difference is failure will involve more wisdom points. Once a character attains cognizance, then the shift involves the lower bound instead of the upper bound. So instead of rolling for 90 or above, the character or the player in this scenario will roll for 81 instead. Once this level is attained, then the character can compete with the lower bound instead of the upper bound. You can, as I mentioned, modify that system to add additional benefits for cognizance. Perhaps you can add a modifier to expectations if you would like, or you can increase the multiplier for experience gain. It is up to you, but this is the core component of the system. Once proficiency is attained, you switch from the upper bound of any Remora to the lower bound, provided it is related to the skill, obviously. If you lack cognizance or proficiency in another skill, you have to compete with the upper bound for the skill checks rather than the lower bound. And again, I know this would seem tedious, but it is meant to reflect the growth of the character. Similarly, in life, you can never attain anything quickly. It takes years for you to attain a particular skill through practice and experience. So this is designed for lengthy campaigns. If your campaign is short, you can adjust the system accordingly. Then the process will be repeated yet again. The character will keep gaining experience until the last stratum is reached. I know there's still a percentage a range missing from 91 to 100. That is the 10th stratum, which can never be attained by any character. That is why it will be discussed in a separate video, because it has a specialized mechanic for it. Once the last stratum is attained, that is, I should probably use this color. That level is knowledge or expertise. I will add an arrow here again. And I will write it here for you. This level is knowledge or expertise. What happens when you attain expertise for a particular skill? If you fail a roll or a skill check, as an example, we failed here because the Remora, well, now that we attained proficiency, the Remora is 81 now, but we still failed because it is less than 81. This level allows you to roll again. to enhance your chances at succeeding. So if you fail once, you can roll another time. However, if you fail the second time, the action is considered a failure, which is similar to the mechanic of advantage in D&D. Please note that disadvantageous situations do not affect this level. If you are at a disadvantageous situation, you are still capable of re-rolling, provided that you have attained this level, obviously. If not, then you will be affected harshly, and we will discuss advantages and disadvantages in another video, inshallah bi'idhnillah. Well, mainly because advantages and disadvantages function differently for this system, which you will see later on, bi'idhnillah, and God willing. So even if you are at a disadvantageous situation, it will not affect this mechanic here. You will still be able to roll another time. But remember, you are only allowed a maximum of 2 rolls once this level is attained, and it is only utilized for the skill in which you have attained that level. There are specialized feats, and I use the term feats from D&D, but here it has a different name in this system, that allow you to roll multiple times for all the skills rather than a particular skill, but we will discuss that later, bi'idhnillah, and God willing. So now you remember that these 2 levels affect their respective skills only. If you attain proficiency in survival, but you do not have proficiency in, for example, medicine or investigation or perception, you cannot use the proficiency from survival for perception. Each of these are reflected onto their own respective skills. To recapitulate what we discussed, every skill has 9 stratum, excluding the exceptions to that rule. Every stratum contains 100 boxes for you to check or shade if you are using a paper for your character sheet, at least until the designer of the system creates a program for it. When you act or partake in an action related to a particular skill and fail that action, you gain 2 wisdom points. If you succeed, you gain a single wisdom point, and you have a total of 100 wisdom points per stratum. Once you reach the level of cognizance or proficiency, the skill check compares to the lower bound of the remora rather than the upper bound, which is the default. You always compete with the upper bound, but once you attain proficiency, you compete with the lower bound. Once you reach or attain the level of knowledge, then you are able to roll again for skill checks related to the respective skill for a total of 2 times. You roll once per usual. If you fail, you are able to roll again, provided that you attained this level. To review the system for skill checks, you always roll a D100, add or subtract the expectations, which we discussed in the previous video, and then the final result, whether it is the sum or the difference, depending on the operation here, will be compared to either the upper bound or the lower bound, and that depends on this level here, or this stratum here. And that is it for this video. In the next lecture, inshallah bi'idhnillah, and God willing, we will discuss advantages and disadvantages, and then we can delve into the different skills for each of the pillars. Then we will end with the magical system, but you do not have to use that if you do not want to, since it is rather restrictive for a reason, obviously. And we will discuss that later. And we will also discuss the different feats that you attain when you level up a particular skill. You attain certain feats that assist you in the growth of your character or the development of your character. I hope this video was helpful and beneficial to you all. Enjoy the rest of your day, everyone. Be safe, take care, and peace be upon you all. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.